Rachel Nichols joins us now to talk about a league she knows so well, the NBA. Good morning to you and welcome back. So, the Houston Rockets won again. That's 12 out of 13. Last night they won a wild one in overtime at Oklahoma City, which did not have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and whose Chet Holmgren fouled out with about 8 minutes left in the game, which was a shocker. But Jalen Green had 37 points and 10 rebounds and 7 assists. And since Alpi Şengün went down, Jalen Green has averaged 32 points a game. That's in 8 games. So, Keyshawn, why don't you start us off here? Are we seeing the emergence of a star or even a superstar in Houston?
I mean, superstar is a bit of a stretch, but you're certainly seeing a young player who's kind of coming into his own, and Ime obviously understands with Şengün out that he's the next man up, the next guy that can give them what they're looking for. And you said the 32, well, in the last 14 games, it's 29, 28.9, I'm gonna round it up. I mean, that is star status. Now, could he have done that all season long if Şengün wasn't in? I don't know, but he certainly is coming into his own. I mean, this is a young team with a couple veteran players on it that they brought in to Van Fleet, Brooks, to kind of teach them. Jeff Green, to kind of teach them how to play basketball a certain way. And it's working. I mean, they got Golden State looking over their shoulder right now. Big time.
Better be.
I mean, look, could he have done this with Şengün in? No, he could not have, because of the spacing that is created on the floor with Şengün out. And that is really the key for this team. It's awesome what's happening now. It's great for these guys' confidence. Jalen Green has been a streaky, inconsistent player. Just to see him have those reps, have those great nights out night after night, that's going to be phenomenal. If they can catch the Warriors and get in that play-in game, that will be ahead of schedule for them and give this young team going into next season something to really stand on. All that being said, they have got to figure out a way to have this greatness that they're seeing right now exist alongside the greatness that they saw from Şengün earlier this season. Because a lot of it's just physical room, right? Jalen Green has more room.
He does.
To get around the basket,
Rachel,
do athletic things.
It was only a couple of weeks back. I sat watching Şengün destroy Wembanyama. He destroyed him. He went for 45 on Wemby, and a bunch of them were right in Wemby's face because he's saying, I'm just going at the shot blocker. I'm going right up into his chest and through him. And now you're suggesting they're a little better with Jalen Green being able to be Jalen Green. Okay, so where does that leave them when their star center comes back? Because he's got a bad ankle, but I assume he's going to come back.
You just make the adjustment. And
well, that's a big adjustment,
but I think Ime's smart enough as a coach to be able to make the adjustments. Like Rachel said, maybe Jalen Green doesn't average 29 points. Maybe he maybe when he comes back, it's 23, because Şengün's back in the lineup. But this isn't really it's not about this year. It's about next year. This is just a building block for them to be able to now look and say, okay, we can do it. We know we could do it. And then there's a piece or two out there that they can go get next year to add to what they've already done. This ain't, because they're not going nowhere. This is the 10th spot. They're not going nowhere. Not this year.
I do have a lot of faith in Ime and what he can do here, X and O's-wise, as these guys go forward. And the culture change, too. We just can't forget what a big deal this is. Remember, I mean, it was not that long ago. It was a year and a half, a couple of years ago, where, well, I mean, even beyond that, right? After he left and the feeling of like, man, this team is hopeless and it's purgatory if you get set down there and they don't know what they're doing and they don't know where they're going. And all of a sudden, especially with Ime coming in, because he is such a tone setter for the organization, they have become a young, scrappy team. Fred VanVleet chose to go there. They have a team that feels like they want to be and play in the locker room for each other. So the idea that this group now goes into next season, as you said, whether it's with a play-in behind them or not, that they go in thinking, we are a team where people want to be and you are going to be scared when we come out on the floor. That was a laughable sentence just 2 seasons ago. So even approaching that right now is huge.
All right, so back to Jalen Green. You guys obviously weren't on the show back when, but before his draft, we went back and forth for a month about Jalen Green or Cade Cunningham. And I was all about Jalen Green because he's so much more offensively explosive than Cade can be. Cade's a more all-around better, maybe basketball player. Although last night, when Oklahoma City started to double Jalen Green in the second half, and especially in overtime, he had to give up the ball. He can pass the basketball. He has some feel for the game that I didn't know he had when I watched G League Ignite back in the day. So the point is, he is a wildly explosive scorer. And he just off, I start to compare him because it's the only thing I have. It's to Ant-Man. So we have Anthony Edwards and Jalen Green. He's a little more offensively skilled to me at this point than Anthony is. Just naturally offensive skilled. But Anthony is so much bigger and stronger because Jalen Green plays like he's 6'7", because you don't talk about jump out at the gym. Obviously, so can Anthony. But they only list Jalen Green at 6'4". I thought he was 6'8". I looked it up, and he's 6'4". He weighs like 185. He does not have his man body quite yet. Anthony Edwards weighs 225, so that's like plus 40 pounds. So he's playing with a lot more force than Jalen is able to. But listen, Jalen can just flat out skywalk. And over these 8 games without Şengün, he's making 48% of his threes. Is that going to hold? Is that going to be a constant going forward? Well, he's highly capable because he's got natural, easy stroke with it. So I think we're looking at a star for sure here.
You know, when you get into a rhythm and you shooting threes, he's able to do that now. That wasn't necessarily
It was not the case.
It wasn't the case before.
He would hesitate.
So if he needs,
the offense was going through Şengün.
Yeah, but if he needs to revert back to that, at least he knows and they know he's capable of shooting deep if he needs to. So I wouldn't worry about it reverting back to what they did with Şengün because, again, I think Ime knows, hey, I got something special here.
Well, look, here's what I would say about Jalen Green. What he's shown us so far is his trajectory is not just like this, right? It's going to be like this. And what you hope is that it eventually trends upward. I would not expect, I hope that he's this hot through the rest of the season because it's a great story and it's great for his confidence and he's a fun player to watch. If it doesn't, if toward the end of the season it starts to peter off, I'm not going to be shocked. Yeah. If next season he's sort of a little bit more like this again, I'm not going to be shocked either. I don't think this is, oh my gosh, Jalen Green has made this amazing step forward. He'll never go back. I think he is showing himself and the rest of us what he's capable of, and I would expect more of that in the future. Just maybe not every game from here on out for the rest of time.
So, to me, the real star of this show is the coach, and you know the coach. And I have carefully watched this coach since he sat at the right hand of God the Father Almighty for all those years in San Antonio. And look at him now. He is such a commanding officer. He looks the part, he acts the part, and he has changed everything about the way they play basketball. He's a guy I would love to play for. And are you with me, Rachel? Feedback on what you've seen from Ime in charge.
100%. Look, we saw it in Boston, right? Yeah. I mean, we saw what he did in Boston, and not just what he accomplished in terms of the guys on the court, but the way the guys acted toward him in the locker room, off the court, in the hallway. You could tell the respect they had for him. It was obviously controversial when he left. To Ime's credit, he definitely has talked about, hey, learning from his experiences, just like everybody else, and that he is becoming a pillar in that organization in Houston in the way that they hoped that he would be. And again, the players have so much respect for him. And you know, Skip, that in this league, with this level of talent, those guys have to believe. And he's given them a place to go, a belief. And it is a great example of, with a team that is not all young, right? But some young, to a degree young, to have a disciplined first coach, which he is, a defensively oriented coach, which he can be, and somebody who says, great, here is some clarity. Here is what you are supposed to do. Here is where you are supposed to be. And here's the guy who's going to be there for you in return. That is one of his strengths, and we have seen that on the court pay out.
It all boils down to the respect level. I was going to say that, Rachel, they respect him. And the fact that they respect him, they do for him, and they do the right things. He puts them in the right situation. They trust him. When you look at the great coaches in professional sports, people trust them. All of them, across the board. Even if you went down to Miami, they trust him. Right? You look at Ty Lue, they trust him. They just trust what they're saying, what they're giving them, and you're looking at it with Ime right now, right in front of us.
Hey, there's also a little bit of good fear factor. Like, you know he's in charge. He's going to have the final say because he's 6'6" and carries himself. he's not that far removed from being a player, and they know that. They see that.
And they saw the season in Boston too. They know what he could do. Now I will say Houston does have the 10th strongest strength of schedule going forward,
tough.
so it is going to be a little bit rough for them. I mean, there's not that much season left.
10 games.
Yeah, 10th hardest strength of schedule.
So we got 10 games left, probably around 9-10 games.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Hey, for me, they're
game out. They're game out.
But I was going to say, I will say it'll be interesting to see what happens if they make that plan. Again, I think the confidence and the experience, we always say, particularly in a playoff environment, you don't know what it's like until you've been in it. So that will give them a little bit of at least a taste of it. I would say to you, I think Jalen Green has a ways to go before he hits Anthony Edwards' level. They're both 22 years old.
They're both 22.
And Anthony is just such a dynamic player and has that confidence that Jalen is still developing. But there's no question that Green has been a revelation here in this last tick of the season.
Because he had Lou Dort in his face last night, and he was doing work on him. He is something to behold. They are fun to watch.
So fun.
And I think they're dangerous, man. If they slip into the 10, I don't know if they can catch Golden State. Golden State's starting to play like Steph's starting to say, no, not on my watch. But
one game, Skip, not 3 games.
It's one game. I got it. And Golden State has been so bad at home. They're a sub-500 team at home.
And I think they see each other in a couple of weeks.
They see each other. Yeah. I don't know how dangerous, even if the Rockets get in, I don't know how dangerous they're going to be once they get there. But again, every step forward isn't a big step. And I don't know, I feel like the NFL, you do see teams come out of nowhere a little bit more often because personnel changes so much in the NFL. But the NBA, it is very unusual to see a team succeed, win an NBA Finals per se, without having gotten there and been in the conference finals first, or not into the conference finals until getting into the playoffs. Well, Houston's much further back than that. They're not anywhere near that territory. But it's the same thing applies, right? Is that, hey, until you get into a playoff environment, you don't know what it's like.
Yeah,
so
but
for them to get into it would be huge.
3 games to get to the Super Bowl. And basketball to win a championship.
Oh, it's hard. It's a long time, man.
You got to have done it more.
All right, but we keep dismissing Oklahoma City because we say, well, they haven't been there and done any of that before. But the one thing about Houston is Van Vliet knows what that feels like. And Dylan Brooks has been in high-stress playoff situations, even though he didn't really stand up for himself against LeBron after he called him out. But last night at Oklahoma City, and again, there's no Shai Gilgeous, but Dylan Brooks in overtime stepped up and made 2 huge threes. So Dylan the villain, he's found a place where he's happy. He looks much happier. His body language is much better with Ime.
Well, he, by the way, was undervalued because of some of the off-court stuff, because of some of the chattering, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when he was available, Houston was able to get him for less than probably they should have for the caliber player that he is because of all the other stuff. And if they can keep that stuff in line, and again, that's where Ime Udoka comes in, right? You only talk like that if you feel like it's going to fly in the locker room and with your head coach. And I think Ime has made it clear what is and isn't going to fly in that
organization. If you think about it, Skip, the other 9-10 teams ahead of them, perennial all-stars on their roster.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. So it's just going to be hard. I mean, you think about everybody from the top all the way down, perennial all-stars on those teams.
Yeah, I'm just saying, let's just say for sake of argument that the Lakers wind up 9-10, so it's a home game for the Lakers, and they have to host the Rockets. I would not
they got
be
a
real
number
comfortable with
this
that.
year. They beat us a couple times this year.
Yeah. They're not afraid.
I'm taking LeBron in that scenario.
Yeah.
At home in a playing game, I'm taking. I'm going.
I got that.
We're trying to get out of the play-in, though.
All right, Rachel's going to stick with us here because we got to get her take on Draymond. Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.